Step into the world of power, loyalty, and luck.
I'm gonna make him an offer he can't refuse.
With family, cannolis, and spins mean everything.
Now, you wanna get mixed up in the family business.
Introducing The Godfather at ChumbaCasino.com. Test your luck in the shadowy world of The Godfather slot.
Someday, I will call upon you to do a service for me.
Play The Godfather now at ChumbaCasino.com.
Welcome to the family.
No purchase necessary. VGW Group. Void where prohibited by law. 21 plus. Terms and conditions apply.
Weird Way Media.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Chasing Chevy Chase cast. I'm your host, Chris Stachiw, and I'm joined by my two good friends all the way from the Holiday Road. He's one of the hosts of Cambridge and with Sean, and he's the host of Wake Up Heavy, your friend and mine, Mark with a K, Begley.
God, I miss Jack.
Who doesn't? Also joining us all the way from the projection booth, your friend and mine, Clark Griswold, otherwise known as Mike White.
Jack.
I don't like her fat.
Yeah, that was bizarre.
If you've clicked on this episode of the show and you know what you're getting yourselves into, we're talking about the second film in the National Lampoon's Vacation series. This film is aptly titled National Lampoon's European Vacation because they go to Africa. No, it's because they go to Europe and they travel around Europe because, hey, the Griswold family won a contest where Audrey got molested on live television. Film is directed by Amy Heckerling, based on a script by Robert Klein, based on the characters created by John Hughes. It once again stars Chevy Chase, Beverly D'Angelo, Dana Hill, and Jason Lively round out the Audrey and Rusty of it all. And yes, the Griswolds are on a European vacation due to them winning Pig in a Poke. Oink, 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 we'll be pigs. Mike, I'm going to kick it to you first. What did you think of National Lampoon's European Vacation? And was this your first time being subjected to this film?
This was actually my second time. The first time I saw this film was at the Fort George Drive-In in Southgate, Michigan. I saw it with my folks. I had never seen the original Vacation, but I was going to see the sequel. I think they had seen the original. And I thought it was really stupid. And I only really remembered the roundabout scene. And then I watched it this time, still really only remembered the roundabout theme and thought it was even more stupid than the first time I watched it all those years ago, because now I'd have the first Vacation film to compare it against. And wow, what a letdown. How about you, Mark?
I don't even need to tell mine because it's almost the exact same story.
You saw this movie with my parents? What are you doing?
I came to visit. I was a little bit older than you. You probably don't remember me sitting in the back seat.
They called him Daddy. They called him Daddy Mark, though. It was really weird.
Now, I saw it. Well, I didn't see it in the drive-in. I did see this in the theater. And I also don't think I had seen the first film except maybe bits and pieces on TV. I don't think I'd ever rented it at that point. I know I hadn't seen it in the theater when it came out originally. And just like you, I thought, this really sucks. It's totally lame. I knew enough of the first one to know that the kids were different, and I kind of like that as a running gag. I know that in this case, it was more because they couldn't get Anthony Michael Hall back, so they decided to not have either original child actor back. And I appreciate that they keep that going in further installments. But the only joke I remembered is the one that I quoted at the beginning, God, I Miss Jack, with the knockwurst at the family's house. And that was it. And like we mentioned, or like I mentioned to you before we started recording, I know that I have only seen this movie once because I think I would have remembered all of the nudity if I had rented it, because I probably would have kept renting it if I had realized that there was way more nudity than I was expecting for a PG-13 film, because 16-year-old Mark liked boobies. As did 17-year-old as boob.
You do not like boobies now?
As did 17-year-old, 18-year-old Mark, 19-year-old Mark. I mean, I could
He's going to keep going. Just keep going.
So yeah, I was kind of shocked by that actually, and thought, how did they get away with a PG-13 even in 1985? I know that PG movies prior to this exist with a boob shot, maybe one or two. We've seen that in Under the Rainbow,
Airplane.
In this series, yes, in Airplane, but there were like 10 topless women in that dance scene, and then Gertrude, I don't know what her name was, the girl that Rusty meets in Germany, opens her top, and I think they probably cut Beverly D'Angelo's out in this one to acquire that PG-13, but I could be wrong. Maybe she didn't actually expose herself this time.
It's interesting because I remember the big hoopla about before there was PG-13. Temple of Doom and Gremlins was 84. So if this was PG-13, this is one of the early PG-13 movies. So yeah, maybe they hadn't really worked it out as far as what that line between R and PG was, and they were able to have all these bare breasts in this film because they still just don't know yet.
Right. I mean, there's an F word. It's not spoken, but there's an F word on screen in this film, along with the other minor.
Yeah, I think she says, "Oh, fuck your vote" at one point.
Oh, did she say that? Okay. I thought, see, when I was watching it today, there was a point where she's walking, they split up in Rome and she's walking away and she said, "Forget your something." And I'm like, they probably bleeped that or, changed that in post. That was probably a second fuck, but I guess I missed the first actual spoken fuck. So yeah, they got away with quite a bit for a PG-13. And like you say, it was early on.
Chris, did you also attend the drive-in and see this with my folks?
Yes, I was about to say, actually, I did. I actually built a time machine and went back in time, and I sat in your trunk. You remember how you heard that weird noise in the back? That was me in the trunk of your car.
I just remember when we got out of the car, there was a metal hook hanging from the passenger's door.
Wait a second. This is what now? And then he was hanging from the car from above by a tree's fingernails touching the top. There's an escaped convict on the loose in your area. Speaking of escaped convicts, God, Chevy Chase, am I right? What in the holy hell, man? Oh, look, no, my history with this movie is similar to y'all's, actually, in kind of an ironic way. This was the first vacation movie I saw, even before Christmas, even before the oft-maligned but unfairly maligned Vegas Vacation starring Wayne Newton, which I can't wait for us to get to, especially if y'all are enjoying this movie as much as you did. Boy, we're not that far afield yet, but we're going to get there. I think this movie is perfectly fine. I think it's pretty much just a poorly written retread of the first movie in a lot of ways. I think that there are some strange things about this movie. I remember a lot of the soundtrack of this movie more than I remember some things like C'est Plein Pour Moi by Plastic Bertrand that they play for 30 seconds in the movie. I don't know. It's a weird movie because this is the sequel to the last movie and they're doing things like recasting the kids and again, like acknowledging it, but sort of not acknowledging it. And again, but I don't know. I like it. I think that for me, it probably has more nostalgic value than I think it has for either one of y'all, clearly. I've seen this movie so many times that there are whole scenes that I could probably quote, the pyramidal tracks, that whole thing. I mean, the whole beginning of the movie, I think is, again, it's just a weird movie. And there are some weird things in the movie that feel like, I don't know, this, again, this movie comes out in 85, but it almost feels like in a lot of ways like it was made in the late 70s with some of the sensibilities and especially the stereotypes of Europe that they're so willingly wanting to go to, which is it's 85. It's not 65 for fuck's sake. But I mean, again, it is kind of painted pretty broadly, but I think it's fun. I don't think you're going to go into this expecting to get a movie as good as the last one, but I think in terms of it being the first sequel and technically, the only, I guess the only one that's not I guess the other one's a holiday one. So this, I don't know, again, it's weird because European Vacation, it just kind of is here. It feels like Vegas Vacation in a lot of ways. Nobody that I know has any strong feelings towards any of the vacation movies other than Christmas Vacation. Really, like we can, I think, all level with one another here. Like Christmas Vacation is the one that I think is like has gotten the most play since it came out because it's a holiday movie, which gives it a little bit more cachet. I think this movie's fine. It's kind of lacking because it's just they're going to Europe instead of Wally World. Okay. Christmas Vacation's at least novel. It's kind of unique. The people are coming to their house. They're not going anywhere. Like it's more about the interactions between the family as a whole, as opposed to like, well, Clark's gonna do the Clark thing. Beverly D'Angelo's just gonna be there and look pretty and go Clark over and over again.
Or Sparky.
Yeah, I think it's fine. I think probably by the end of this episode, I think it will out that I enjoyed it more than y'all. But I think initially it's fine. But even I can admit that it's a bit of a mess. It's a bit of a retread, and it's also tonally strange and at times.
Yeah.
But I enjoy it for what it is, and it's a Chevy Chase movie. So how bad can it really be? Pretty bad.
I will say this.
Yeah,
though.
the joke. It's of me being facetious, obviously.
I'll say this. I actually enjoyed it way more than I expected. I was not looking forward to this, and I mentioned last time, maybe before we hit record, that it was on. It came on AMC or something, and my wife.
You mentioned it in the episode, I think.
Okay, and I was like, I don't want to sit through this twice this close together. And I watched, I think,
if I want to sit through it once,
I watched it up to about Germany. It was just on, and I was doing other stuff, and but I wasn't looking forward to it because the only thing I really remember is that first viewing at the theater and thinking this was really stupid, and I barely laughed. And not that I laughed all that much, but it did not bother me as much as I thought, and I enjoyed way more of it than I thought. After I think France, I was like, oh, okay, this isn't that bad. But somebody mentioned the thing about Audrey and not wanting to be fat for Jack. I took, that whole through line, I didn't remember at all. And I'm like, oh, this is so 80s and so off-putting that she is worried about what she's eating the whole time. And that's her only bit in this other than the missing Jack. And I'm like, this is so...
It gets so old. Just every time she says Jack, it just drives me up a fucking wall. Just this whole movie doesn't feel like it knows what it wants to be. And I have to admit, the script, which runs 137 pages. Now, there are a lot of pages that say page deleted. I didn't go through and count those, but even if it's 120 pages, that's a 2-hour comedy, and nobody needs a 2-hour comedy in 1985, much less 2024 or 25. They just missed the mark on these jokes, though. Like, I don't know if it was we have to rewrite late in the game, or if it was all of the tension and basically open hostility of Chevy Chase towards director Amy Heckerling. I'm not blaming Amy Heckerling for anything on this movie, but I will say that the final result of this film just looks like it was so poorly directed and just doesn't know how to structure anything. I don't think that's Amy Heckerling, though, because I loved Johnny Dangerously. I really like Fast Times. I mean, she gets into the Look Who's Talking movies, but then she comes back with Clueless. So it's like, all right, she knows how to direct a movie. She knows how to direct a comedy. But some of the jokes in here, I mean, all the way to one of the very first jokes of Clark after they've won the prize on Pig and a Poke, which originally was in the script. It was Audrey remembering they ask about some chemical, and she remembers what it is and wins the game because it's in Midol, and she just looked at the package. But in here, it's Beverly D'Angelo winning it by accident by saying Clark, as in Lewis and Clark. But here's Clark reading here's all the great things about this vacation. He's pouring some lighter fluid on the charcoal, and then he keeps reading. Beverly D'Angelo pours some lighter fluid on the charcoal, and then he pours more on it, and then they light this fire, and it flames up like 1.5 feet. In the script, every single person in the family puts fluid on this, and it's almost like that Homer Simpson joke of the mushroom cloud going up and this huge explosion. Here, it's so little. It's just absolutely tiny when it goes off. And then you get the quote unquote punchline of Clark having soot on his face.
Soot,
I'm like,
yeah.
That flame was super tiny, sir. You would not have soot on your face. And if you do, go wilder and cover his eyebrows so it looks like they burn them off. Do something like that. But it just, none of these jokes land for me. And the script has all of the buttons because none of these scenes have buttons on them. They just end. And the other thing that for me is flawed about this film is in Vacation, and I don't know about any of these other vacation films because I haven't watched them other than the remake/sequel. They're trying to get to a place and there's a reason and they're trying to get there. But here they get to Europe. They never have any problems going from country to country. They just have little adventures inside the country.
Mm-hmm.
And those little adventures usually involve a slapsticky thing or a
Misunderstanding.
Misunderstanding.
Of course.
And then we end with a international intrigue thing. And I'm just like, what the fuck is this? So I am definitely the monkey in the wrench. I'm when it comes to this movie, because I think that this is just shit. I think it stinks.
Robert Klane, who wrote a script for a movie we watched earlier this year, Mr. White, The Man with the One Red Shoe.
Yes.
You mentioned the intrigue. At the end of this movie, it goes man with one red shoe for like 15 minutes. And guess what? I dislike it here even more now, having seen that movie earlier this year, which I was not a huge fan of. I believe Father Malone was probably the one who, I think you and him enjoyed it more than I did. I know I did not enjoy it as much as I think Father Malone did, at least.
I did not like that movie either.
Okay, I couldn't remember.
He's also the one that readapted Preston Sturges for Unfaithfully Yours.
Walk Like a Man.
Yes, Walk Like a Man, another infamous comedy. Yeah, not really instilling a lot of faith in me as far as his abilities. But I don't know if it was him and Hughes or if it was just him writing this one.
Well, and to quote Matthew Lillard, you're no John Hughes. You're not.
So
you're not. And that's the problem. When it's being compared to a John Hughes script, what can you fucking do? Like, I don't know. You're at a disadvantage already. It's a Sisyphean task of your own creation to be the guy to go, yeah, I'm going to pick up the ball that John Hughes was carrying. Like, oh, no. Better knock it out of the park, because the original Vacation, he sure did. Even if that movie is not, again, the Christmas movie, the way Christmas Vacation is, the original Vacation is still a lot more of a pop culture iconic film than this one is. If anybody even remembers this movie. Like, that's the thing. There's not even one, I would say there's not even one segment from this movie that has, or would have escaped the gravity of the film. You know what I mean? And kind of escaped the orbit of the film and gotten out into the world and become a thing like a lot of the stuff from Christmas Vacation has, or the Wally World stuff has from the original movie. What is there from this movie that anybody remembers? Them backing into Stonehenge, Big Ben Parliament.
Big Ben Parliament.
That's it, right? Like, that's it. And and even that's like funny, but to what ends? And they have some reoccurring gags like with Eric Idle as well, but I don't know, like, there's not one segment in this movie where I go, oh yeah, like that's the segment, that's the scene, the Christmas light scene from Christmas Vacation, or the Mele Kalikimaka scene from Christmas Vacation. This movie has funny scenes that I like, but I can 100% concede and will concede that they're not great compared to what came before and after this movie in terms of importance to pop culture and terms of comedy with Chevy Chase. I mean, I'm not sure that this movie really ever lives up to his ability to be a comedian, because this is 85. I mean, this is kind of peak Chevy Chase. This movie, in a lot of ways, wastes his talents. I mean, hey, we get pratfalls, though. He sits in that mattress on the bed and wow, he falls into the bed. Ooh, let's jump into the fountain. I mean, there's plenty of that. I mean, hey, but to what end? And how much of it is really funny and how much of it is just the shtick that we've seen him do a million times?
Well, none of it's going to end up on a clip show. When he dies, they're not going to pull clips from this movie.
They'll pull it from Vacation or in his Vacation.
Yeah, then people would be like, what's this? What movie is this?
It'll be either the speech from Vacation or the speech from Christmas Vacation, which even I, having never seen that movie, know about that. But yeah,
you've never seen Christmas Vacation. That's crazy.
No.
I literally quoted it when I was out today with my friends because we saw Christmas trees at Dollar Tree. And I go, bend over and I'll show you where to stick it. I wasn't talking to you. I mean, there are some primo lines for that movie, but it's weird to me you've never seen it, given that it's a Christmas movie.
Oh, do I watch Christmas movies?
No, but I mean, like, it's a I don't know, like, I guess more to the, I mean, don't you? Like, I guess, like, I don't know, like, don't you watch Christmas movies? I thought we kind of, like, all do, is more what I mean.
I just watch whatever's on Hallmark. So
Oh my
that's
God. 30 Days of Santa Love.
I really like when there's that stuck-up woman and she moves from the big city to the small town.
Keep
and
it going.
she has problems with that guy who's got a little bit of a beard and kind of an
Rough around the
attitude.
edges, yeah.
Little rough
Is he a
around the edges.
firefighter, maybe? Is he a volunteer firefighter with a heart of gold?
I don't know, but he's got a daughter.
Yes, he does have a baby.
daughter. Not a son, a daughter. And a very, like, probably between the age of, like, 7 to 12. Not too precocious, but precocious enough.
Yes.
Yeah.
And they have a dream of opening up a cookie shop together. And so it's about the three of them opening up a cookie shop together, and it's called Love's Bake
Christmas
Sale.
cookies. Yeah.
Christmas cookies. Sounds like a weed brand.
Chevy Chase is in one of those, by the way.
Really? Oh, wow.
Yes.
Yeah, it came out, last year, the year before? It's like relatively recent too, on top of everything else. Oh,
Yeah.
Glisten? No, not Glisten in the Merry Mission. It's, oh God, what is it? It's,
It
yeah.
has Christmas in the title, I believe.
Christmas cookies?
A Christmas in Vermont is what it's called.
Really?
Yes, from 2016. So actually from 8 years ago, which is pretty wild.
How many movies are there that are called A Christmas in Vermont?
Plenty, apparently.
I don't know, but only one has Chevy Chase.
It's true.
That's true.
But how many actors from Harry Potter are in this movie? We have Robbie Coltrane, Eric Idle.
He's on Harry Potter?
Yeah, Eric
Cleese
Idle.
was.
Doesn't Eric Idle? No, I guess that's right. That's John. Yeah, it's John Cleese, not Eric Idle.
I think Mel Stewart was dead before the Harry Potter movie started. But yeah, I loved seeing all of these British actors.
Derek Deadman. He plays, I believe, the guy who owns the Leaky Cauldron. Mr. Potter, my word. Like that, I believe that is him.
Isn't he the albino in Princess Bride? Is that the same guy?
That's Mel Stewart. Yep.
Oh, Mel Stewart.
Oh, that's
okay.
Mel Stewart. Yeah, the guy who's in charge of the hotel.
Yeah.
Yeah,
The hotel.
yeah. And then we have William Zabka as well, because
Billy.
with the random cameos in this movie, that and John Aston being a fucking creep, which I
Yeah,
guess is
weird.
that's supposed to be Richard Dawson, right?
Yeah. Yeah. Though I love Paul Bartel showing up in that snooty family. I think that's fantastic.
The Frogers.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was another 80s, like, oh, wow. Yeah, okay, 1985. We're going to get real pervy with the game show host here.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
But the movie has like a really weird, I think, like interplay back and forth with the sexuality, because we have like a 16-year-old making out with a man at the beginning of the movie. And then in the next scene, we have the whole back and forth with William Zabka in front of her family, which is so strange. And then we have, again, scenes where she's making comments about the size of his dick to her family. And again, then we have, Clark and Ellen, filming a movie together, and then it gets stolen, and then she blames Clark for all of it, which is, again, like what an 80s-ism of the movie on top of everything else, because like this could
It's
have
in
been
the
handled.
cloud.
Yeah.
How does the cloud work? I don't know. Nobody knows how the cloud works. We have to get rid of that sex tape in the movie called Sex Tape. Sorry.
It's I don't know. The sexuality of the movie is strange, because then we have, French culture, topless women. So I don't know, the movie's all over the place. And man, on top of everything else, Dana Hill as Audrey Griswold. Mike, here's your chance. Go right ahead. I've been wondering and waiting to hear what your deal is with Dana Hill as Audrey, since you mentioned that there was a possible issue with her with her. So I am beyond curious.
My issue is just that she was in some TV movies back in the 70s and 80s, including one of the most disturbing films I ever saw in my life, which was called, I believe, Fallen Angel, where Richard Masur, the guy that played Clark in The Thing, he is this real creep, and he basically ends up taking dirty pictures of her as she's like this young teenager, even though she's not a young teenager. Of course, she was one of these people that looked younger than she was, but that was real fucking creepy. And I just remember that video box cover from my days working at Blockbuster, and just how skeezy that movie makes you feel.
Oh, I thought you were going to say that scene where she's eating the food is probably, jeez.
Well, no, that scene is awful. I don't know.
It's awful because she's literally not able to do what she needs to do because she died of a diabetic coma. Like, Jesus Christ. Like giving Scott Hall alcohol, being like, go pretend to be drunk on live air. Like, pretend to be fat and eat, and we're going to make fun of your character for being fat the whole movie. Like, that could not have been good. There's no way that could have been good for her as an actress.
Well, and it's just weird, the whole, like, everybody seems to be having good dreams except for her. Yeah, I feel like she's the butt of the joke so much in this movie, and she just gets so fucking annoying every single scene. Oh, Jack. I'm like, could she have anything else? Any other characteristic other than I'm afraid of getting fat because I miss my boyfriend?
Because William Zabka won't work me if I'm not skinny.
Right.
And apparently he has a very big sausage.
Yes, apparently.
Hey, we're talking about Billy Zabka here. So.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Well, he for sure does.
He wasn't the Karate Kid for nothing, or one of a kid who did karate. Another film I've never seen. No interest in seeing.
Okay.
He's a great jerk in that.
He's an amazing bully.
He's a jerk in this.
He's a jerk in all the movies.
Oh, yeah. He played a jerk really well. He was
just one of the guys.
Just one of the guys. He was fantastic in that as a jerk.
I don't think he's a jerk in April Fool's Day. Is he in that?
I'm not sure.
I might be thinking of somebody else, but I did like the little touch of her immediately having all the pictures of him up in the London hotel room. The first shot of her, and I'm like, where did all those pictures come from?
Just a shrine to him.
Yeah, I am not a fan of the kids in this film at all.
I think they are the worst versions of the kids, frankly.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
And not having seen Vegas Vacation at all yet, I can't speak to that. But
they're weird
that
in that movie.
Seen,
but they're not weird like this.
I don't like either of them. I don't like Rusty in this. I don't like her in this.
He's horny, right?
I don't care. He's horny. I want to slap those stupid painter hats off of his head, man. I just was like, you're obnoxious. And just the whole thing of like not being able to watch TV. I'm like, God, you're in a fucking foreign country, man. Go, deal with it.
The worst thing about foreign travel, there's so many things about foreign travel that are awful and that could easily be made fun of. One of those things is how they get from England to France. Like, obviously the channel isn't built yet. Are they flying over? Are they taking a ferry over? Like, there's some great opportunity for some seasickness. There's missing flights, but they have no problem at all getting from one country to another. Yeah. They don't really have much problem with the language other than the occasional, the French stuff is okay. And the French stuff, I think, is the only thing that really works for me is when the French waiter's making fun of Clark so much. The stuff with the passports doesn't really work for me. I think that would have been better had that been moved to an airport scene and them making fun of the passports. But because, oh man, the audio commentary for this is insufferable too, by the way. This is only Chevy on the audio commentary. You get nobody else's POV. So when the movie starts and it's all the passports, he's just like, yeah, this is my idea. And I wanted my name first in case this movie was a hit. And I was just like, oh man, you are just so fucking full of yourself. But we see the passports in the opening credits, and they're not the same passports as we see later in the movie. So it's a stupid little nitpicky thing, but it's just something where I'm just like, well, maybe you should have shown those same passports, fuckface.
Well, there's a lot of missed opportunities in this. And you and I were talking about, some of that prior to recording, but the sex tape should have played it after it got stolen in France. It should have just kept popping up. People should have been recognizing her. Exactly. Proving guys looking at her all the time. Where do I recognize that face? It's just at the very end in Rome before they split up. That's the only time we see it.
each country could have a different title, and they
Title,
completely
yep.
plays upon the woman in the shower.
Exactly.
Even if it was just the same title, but it was in the different languages. So then, whatever it is in French, whatever it is in German, like, yeah, it would have been really nice. And then if they eventually go back to England at the end, or even when they go back to America, by the way, that whole end scene in the airplane, not in the script. Not in the script at all.
And not funny.
And not funny either. I mean, especially because it's just a retread of the Stonehenge joke. It's like, okay, and that's the thing too. It's like, why don't you just have them wrecking Europe? Every single time they go to someplace else, they wreck something. They fuck up the Trevi Fountain. They fuck up the Eiffel Tower. They fuck up, I don't know, the Brandenburg Gates, sorry. Something that would show that, like, even if they're in Germany, have some Berlin Wall jokes or something. Come on, like a guy tumbling out from the Berlin Wall and they accidentally get him caught by the authorities and you hear a gunshot off screen. That would have been way funnier than what we're seeing in here. Like there's a whole sequence in England that's in the script that isn't in the movie, where they actually go sightseeing. They go to Madame Tussauds. There's an old guy who faints and his wife is going to get help, and they come in and there's a exhibit of a guillotine. So Clark is like, oh, this old dummy fell down. Here, let me help out with that. He lifts the guy up and puts him on the guillotine. So like the blade is coming. And then when the woman comes back, they leave and the woman comes back in. They pick up the guy, and as soon as they do, the blade falls and almost chops off his head. That's some good stuff. And I'm like, okay, yeah, again, like play with the location, but instead it's just like, yeah, look, kids, Big Ben, Parliament. Okay, and then suddenly we're at Stonehenge because we're leaving for France the next day. And again, no problems with money exchange, like, any of that kind of stuff where it's such a huge pain. Like these days, it's a lot easier, but in 1985, man, you are fucked going to a different country.
Well, I just got to pull my Cinema Sins card here and say, you do not get to pull your car right up to Stonehenge. There's a completely separate part. You don't even get to walk up that close to it. Even back then in 1985, I was there in 1990, and it is the rope around it is a good 20 yards away from it. And I just, that scene bothers me mainly because of that. And again, I just don't find it that funny that, they back into it and it all falls down. Thousands of eons of history destroyed by the Griswolds.
Hilarious. They almost destroyed the Statue of Liberty. Well, at least they didn't have him flying in between the Twin Towers. I mean, I don't know how much worse it could have been. I'm glad that Jeanette Charles was given work in this film, just like when we talked about Naked Gun last year, the world's most famous Queen Elizabeth II impersonator.
Yes.
Yeah. She has, like I didn't go, I'm
way better than the Charles and Diana. That's for sure.
And they made Charles look way better than he actually does in real life.
That's for sure.
That's all that lady did. And I don't know how many credits she has on IMDb, but it was a ton that I went through, and it was Queen or Queen Elizabeth. Were all.
But is that better than Moon Unit Zappa? Just also being in this movie randomly at the end?
That was very odd. But like every girl that Rusty runs into knows how to speak English, I guess.
Well, and they're all into him because he's apparently probably got a big hog, or he's charismatic or something, because I can't figure out why anyone would be into him. Because he's just
so weird looking.
Well, I didn't say that, but he has a strange personality.
Yes.
And I don't understand, like, he's just horny all the time. Okay. That's not much of a characterization. That's just like a stereotype. And Anthony Michael Hall, like, that's the thing, to think about what Anthony Michael Hall was doing. Like, it was kind of the same thing, but we get some of those moments where he's drinking the beer with Clark, and Clark's like, "Hey, take a sip," and he just chugs the whole goddamn thing.
Yeah.
It's a great scene. Like that one scene is better than all of what Jason Lively is given to do in this movie. And I don't think it's. I mean, we've already alluded to the fact that it's not. I don't think it's any actor's fault. I mean, look, Chevy Chase. I mean, the commentary, like you mentioned, Mike, is like, "Oh my god, dude, we get it. You're fine," but
he is a gift given to us by God.
Yeah, who also happens to be Chevy Chase. I don't know, like Rusty as a character in this movie, just he has no charisma the way Anthony Michael Hall just has it in general
He's a natural.
Yeah,
I mentioned it on that episode. It's like, this is one of those kids where you just get it immediately. Like he knows what to do in a scene. He knows how to play a scene.
At this point, he's as big of a star as Chevy Chase is.
He's starring in Weird Science, at the same time.
That's why he's not in this movie. Like, it's because he has outshone this stuff. He's going on to be in other John Hughes things, not in lesser John Hughes continued projects. Yeah, it's, for as much as I do enjoy this movie, Audrey and Rusty are, like you mentioned, Mark, they're the worst. Ethan Embry is Rusty in Vegas Vacation, and it's very different. It's kind of this horny thing similarly here, but he's a lot more likable because it's Ethan Embry, and like Ethan Embry's just, I feel like one of those actors, every time I see him in something, he's just kind of, I think, always shows up and always does a good job. Not saying Jason Lively isn't, but he's just characterized so stereotypically with zero comedy other than he's horny. You get it? He's horny. It's like, wow.
And he doesn't want to be there. Those are his two.
Well, isn't that just the same fucking character that Audrey is then? She's horny and she doesn't want to be there.
Yeah, pretty much.
She wants to be with Billy Zabka. That's it. The end. That's your characterization for 2 of the 4 main characters in this movie. Great.
And she's worried about her weight.
Right.
That's her third characteristic.
Which, to be fair, they really only do that once. Like, they really only hammer that home once. I mean, there's a couple more lines about her not wanting to eat, but in terms of it being like a thing that the movie really speaks to, it really only does the one scene, and it that's about it, right? Like, it doesn't have her like tempted or overdoing it. We have the one scene where she's like, well, no, I'm going to eat now because Billy Zabka and I aren't together anymore. And then that's like, okay, well, is that supposed to be funny?
Right. Which is still sad.
Right. It's and again, knowing the real life story of Dana Hill doesn't make it much better.
Right.
Because Mike, you were sharing with me, she couldn't swallow the food in the scene where they were feeding her all that food because she was like deathly diabetic and died from being in a diabetic coma. Like, Jesus Christ. It's again, like, not to be like a wokester triggered or whatever, but it's just, that's icky is the word I would use. It's just, it's not good. Kind of makes me feel icky to watch a woman who is, ultimately, probably within the next decade after this movie comes out, passes away from a diabetic coma. But look, let's laugh at her because she's fat. Like, she's not even that fat. Like, fuck you, movie. Like, fuck you. She's not some sort of grotesquerie. Like, and that's not even how that works anyways. But in the world of media, if you're overweight, it's like you're either funny or people poke jokes at you because you're fat, or you poke jokes at yourself and you're tempted by food and you're always eating. Like, and this character is all of those things, but deeply unfunny, almost to the point where it's like Courtney Cox in Friends. I've never seen Friends, but I know about that in Friends, and I know how poorly that's aged in retrospect. And this is the same thing. It's like, why, man, this is pretty in poor taste even then.
Well, she has no jokes. Nobody has jokes. And the jokes that they do have are so ham-fisted. Would you like that Coke in the can? No, here's fine. And like, take the pause that I put in here, maybe times it by 3. It just flops. And I know Chevy's like, oh, I like that joke. Just like how into that joke he is. But like nothing, even when it comes to like the telephone bill at the inn in England, the telephone bill is $253. Now I understand that this is 1985, but why not go a little crazy and have it be like $1,200, like something really big, something really outrageous? Maybe make that more of a problem other than everything.
Like, that's all their money.
Yeah, exactly. And everything is taken care of off screen with this, where it's like, oh, Audrey, Daddy's sorry. He really didn't mean to call Jack that. Yes, I did. But we don't get any of the other stuff. We don't get the whole thing of like, this is all of my money. This is every single traveler's check that I have. I now need to pay for this. And then that suddenly becomes an issue for the family because there's no issues. There's nothing like constantly nagging them. And like, that's the thing with the first vacation is we're stripping away each thing. Like, the car is going to break down and this is going to happen and this is going to happen. We don't get the buildup of stuff.
There's no tension, and which can drive me crazy, that kind of tension. Like, I've mentioned it on numerous shows. The Comedy of Errors sort of drives me crazy, but I was definitely
train in the bathroom.
Well, that, yeah, and even just, everything that can go wrong will go wrong, and it can get old and make me anxious in a movie. But I was missing it here, like nothing, like you've mentioned, the travel between countries, the issue with money or exchange rates. There's no problems, there's no obstacles for them to get over. It's all just, we're going to go to this place in England, we're going to wreck our car a bunch of times in a row, hit Eric Idle, which becomes a running gag.
Did you know they drive on the left-hand side of the street? Did you know that?
Yeah.
Did you know? Like, did you know that? But did you know that?
They have roundabouts?
Did you know?
And it's just like, and those aren't even problems because the British are so polite. I don't know. I lived in England for 4 months. I didn't find it to be that way either. But in France, what's the problem in France? They lose their video recorder.
Yeah, big whoop. They lose their video recorder. They run into that other couple who are making out all the time. I guess that's supposed to be funny.
Get a porker.
I'm
hilarious.
I don't understand what that.
They go to the
now. If they had watched their video and gotten all horned up, that
would have been a funny thing.
That lady at that other table,
right? They
She's
go
in that
to
porno we watched.
They go to the Eiffel Tower. They go to that restaurant. They go to the Eiffel Tower. Rusty gets laughed at. That's the big moment. You're talking
the dog jumps off the Eiffel Tower.
Yeah, you're talking about the Eiffel Tower thing. Yeah, exactly. The dog's fine. He falls into in water and he's fine, even though it's like a 200-foot drop. But like the moment of when Clark is like, "Oh, you don't like this, Rusty? Here, let me get rid of it." Like that moment is the scene that you guys were talking about with Anthony Michael Hall, like the beer sharing scene. It's way too early in the film, and there's nothing to it. And there's no like we are now at a different level of our relationship. Like Rusty and Clark are different after that talk that they have in the first vacation. This is just, we're having a man-to-man talk, but it's not really going to make any sort of difference because you're still going to be the same prick in the next scene, and so am I.
Pretty much.
Yeah. It doesn't, him taking off his hat doesn't get him late, get in a three-way with these two French girls. So what big whoop.
So I'm going to ask this. I'm going to assume neither one of you have seen Euro Trip.
Oh, I have.
Okay.
Much bigger movie.
This is like, I'd never made the comparison in my head until watching this now, and I'm not sure I'd really seen this. I'd seen this recently, but I hadn't sat and like paid attention to it. I think I'd watched it maybe in the last year or two, but I just watched it in sequence with everything else, and it was probably just on in the background, so I didn't sit and really give this movie the fair shake that I'm giving it this time. This movie is so much worse than Euro Trip. And Euro Trip is a movie that I can completely understand people do not want to watch and or would not like because it's a very specific kind of mid-2000s raunchy teen comedy. But my God, it makes this film makes that film look like a fucking Picasso, a Mona Lisa, like a perfect film worthy of the AFI top 10, because this movie has no jokes, even to the length of like a Scotty Doesn't Know, which in that movie does show up multiple times throughout the film. They're in, they're in Eastern Europe at one point in a nightclub, and you hear like a nightclub version of Scotty Doesn't Know, and the characters point it out. They sing it several times throughout the movie. There's actually stakes in that film because of a misunderstanding between the main character and his foreign exchange pen pal who he thinks is a guy, but it's actually like a hot blonde German woman named Mika, and he thought her name was Mike. And so like there's already a little bit of baked in stakes because she's going to go away and he's going to miss his opportunity to be with her. There's nothing like that here. And that movie's made in, early 2000s, doesn't have Chevy Chase in it. It has Michelle Trachtenberg, I think at the time is like the biggest name, and Matt Damon is in it for a minute. And the main character in the movie, that actor went to my high school randomly. But other than that, it doesn't have Beverly D'Angelo and Chevy Chase's names attached to it, and it sure doesn't have a John Hughes with the writing. And yet it is a light years better film, even in terms of just like the base level of comedy that you're getting from some of the lesser scenes in the movie.
I agree with you completely. I really enjoyed Euro Trip when I watched it, and I was really reminded of Euro Trip while I was watching this and just going, I'd rather be watching that right now, because I didn't find anyone a character that I wanted to stick around with, anybody that I wanted to follow. And then I didn't even care about them enough to be happy when bad things happen to them.
Well, and that is the whole aspect of the National Lampoon's Vacation series that I appreciate, which is like they're kind of shitty people who are having shitty things happen to them, and that's funny. And the new Vacation, when we get to it, which will be, you know, in the far-flung future, it really leans into that. And it's like, we're going to put these motherfuckers through the ringer. And that's one of the best aspects of that movie, is how far it goes to make these like shitty people go through shitty situations, which is funny. It's, you know, in a lot of ways what National Lampoon is doing now, or in 1985, is what three writers for, you know, It's Always Sunny would end up doing. You know, the three actors, Rob McEnally and I remember Charlie Day and I forget the other gentleman, but the three main actors from that show would take the idea of they're terrible people having terrible things happen to them or doing terrible things, and that's funny. And that's what these European vacation movies are all about. You're not really supposed to root for the Griswold family, because if you knew these people, you'd be like, oh, these fucking people are insufferable, because they're like so fucking pretentious and up their own asses. And like, but that's the point. Like at one point at the end of the movie, Clark goes, oh, America's happy to have the Griswolds back. No, we are not. No, like you guys are a menace, but that is the point of the joke. But they are like genuinely terrible people, which the joke of the movie is terrible things happening to terrible people is funny. This movie doesn't even do that. Like what they're almost killed in Germany. And that's probably the closest that we get to like an actual scene with stakes or any sort of like, oh, they're in real danger. Like there's real danger in Christmas Vacation. They're underneath a log truck in the first 10 minutes of the movie. Like there's scenes with some actual like stakes. This movie's like, nope, not really. Just lots of misunderstandings and speaking other languages because we're in Europe.
Well, Ellen does get kidnapped at the end of the film.
Yeah, for like 5 minutes.
Yeah, for like 2 seconds.
Speaking of Germany, I think this is, and Mike and I talked again briefly about this before we hit record. Another huge missed opportunity is with the whole setup of that trip there is to go visit his family. And the way they play it out in the movie, where it's again, mistaken identity, the wrong house. Instead of 6, they go to 16. But there's absolutely 0 point to it.
Well, in Germany, they don't speak English.
Well, yeah, but
no, they don't.
There's no mishaps.
They don't speak English in Germany at all.
They eat dinner with the family, go to bed, and then leave the next morning. There are no, I don't want to say consequences, but there's no, again, no tension there. Nothing goes wrong while they're there.
The police should have shown up and like taken him away. Like, why are we being arrested? What did we do? Like anything.
So my thought after the movie ended was, why didn't they make that like the Cousin Eddie scene, but in German?
There you go.
You know, my cousin Edvard Griswold, or whatever, you know, and have it be this bizarre German family with all this weird food and all this other crazy, you know, stuff. Or at least, like Mike mentions, how the script goes.
Yeah, there's no button on the scene that we see in the movie, but in the script, it's, you know, we see them leave and then we get the captions where it's, who the hell were they? And then the woman saying, fuck if I know. And then, you know, cut to further down the street, an elderly couple walks by, woman in German. I wonder when our relatives from Chicago will arrive. Man, never, I hope. I mean, even if they had just like panned around, or, you know, like even just to show the 1-6 rather than the 6 right off the bat, like that should have been, if they didn't do the other couple, the actual relatives, they should have held on to that 1-6 joke until after they leave, and then we see they're at the wrong house. And then we get the who the hell are those people? That would have been nice.
Yes.
But instead they ruined the joke by showing us the numbers wrong right off the bat.
Yep. That, or have his family, even if it's not a Cousin Eddie-esque family, have his family preparing a meal and doing all this, you know, almost like a cross-cut thing where we see them getting ready for the Griswolds.
Exactly. That was my joke when I was watching it. I was like, now the camera needs to pan over from them over across the street where we see the other family. And yeah, they're like nervous and anxious, and they're so excited to see the Griswolds, but
Pictures of them up in the wall or whatever.
yeah.
Welcome to
Or some
Griswolds.
dinner.
Yeah. I wonder how big Rusty's gotten. Oh, I can't wait to see him. Yeah.
Man,
Something.
they should pay us. Oh, wait.
No.
It's a nothing burger. I'm like, what's the joke here? They leave and then the old couple says those two lines. I'm like, that's not funny.
Well, he was brushing his teeth in the bedpan.
Oh, right.
Yeah, that was funny.
End scene.
Which
That was funnier than anything in the whole movie.
Never. Look, Dad, bedpans. Spit out.
Yeah.
I love a good spit take, says Chevy.
Yeah. God. It was his idea, I'm sure.
All the good ideas are his idea.
No, yeah, you know what they say, success has many fathers and failure is an orphan. Chevy Chase has no failures in his film career. He's not responsible for any of them.
It's all just him having sex with himself. Oh wait,
Yeah.
no, he just went and fucked himself.
Yeah. So speaking of Chevy Chase is in that new Saturday Night Live biopic movie. And you guys would be shocked to learn, maybe, and I'm not kidding. And if you guys don't believe me, and not saying you, but dear audience listeners, go and check out the episode that I did with Father Malone as a crossover with his show Midnight Viewing on Saturday night, the film from 2024. Chevy Chase somehow looks better than any world he should in that movie. He does not look nearly as pretentious and like a prick as he really, I think, is in terms of what we've heard. The movie tones it down more than I think anybody else, which is shocking. They're given the opportunity to do the thing and finally be like, and look, we can finally out Chevy Chase. And the movie's like, we're not really interested in that. It's like,
Right.
wow. Yeah. Guy who plays Chevy Chase is pretty good, though. Does the mannerisms well enough. But seeing him here and then listening to that commentary, it's like, yep, that's the guy. Like, that's the guy who was, convinced that these movies were. I mean, again, the first one was a success. It's not that this movie was or wasn't a success. Made a lot of money. They made 2 more movies off of this movie. So it's not that we're wrong. It's just this movie has not aged well. If it was great to begin with. I mean, it feels lazy, right? And not only does it feel lazy in terms of like it retreading its own script, but then we have really lazy stereotypes and really lazy misunderstanding situations that aren't even specific to the places. We go to Germany in 1985 and there's not a single mention of Nazis. Not even once in a comedic film made by Americans. There's not a mention of Nazis. Come on.
They go to Rome and they buy the most ridiculous clothes in the world and they walk out onto the street. You would think everyone would turn around and just start laughing at the
Right. That's what I was hoping
Americans. Where was that? Instead, they walk around in these outfits, and I think they're still wearing some of these outfits on the plane.
They are wearing the outfits.
Yeah. I was like, this is ridiculous, man. And okay, I like Eric Idle and I like recurring gags, the old rule of three that I always bring up, but this is just too much. It's just too much. And there's just nothing to him because it's just, oh no, I'm fine. And then he walks off. There's nothing, give me something. And I heard at one point that was supposed to be Rowan Atkinson. Can you imagine if he was playing that a little beanish? It would have been so much better.
A little beanish.
Yeah. Just because he could do those pratfalls. He could, just like, fine. Like some of that stuff. But
that was a pretty good Rowan Atkinson, Mike.
Oh, well, thank you.
Yeah, I mean, again, if you're going to go and get someone in 1985, I mean, I wonder how many names down the list Eric Idle was. Did they try John Cleese? And
well, that's the weird thing because in the commentary track again, Chevy's talking about how, oh, here's Eric Idle. He and we wrote a lot of scripts together. And I'm like, wow, I had no idea that you had any sort of connection to Eric Idle. I think that's probably how he ended up in the movie. But now I'm like, well, my new quest is to find out what Chevy Chase and Eric Idle wrote together.
Well, according to IMDb's trivia, they took a crack at another vacation film, Australian Vacation. And aside from a few shark-related gags, neither could come up with much, and the project was abandoned.
Can you imagine how racist that'd be against Aborigines?
thank you. They like Chevy Chase calling people abos over and over again. Man, wouldn't that be fun? That's what I want to see.
Rick Mayall, I'm not sure if I'm pronouncing his last name
Yeah, you are.
correctly. was considered for the Eric Idle part in John Cleese, and Rick Mayall wasn't well known enough in the States to get it. So
to have a guy get hit by a car a bunch of times that needed to be Eric Idle. Wow, that moved the needle, I guess. Fucking bizarre. Qualifiers, man, they're strange.
Because other than the Monty Python line he tosses out, it doesn't play to any of his characters from that. So it's just a continuation of the polite British person.
The other thing that the script had that this movie is missing is Clark having a crisis of faith. So much of this is, well, this is the country of Griswold and I'm the president. And then he's slowly losing power to the point that they have a revolution when they're in Rome. And he starts going out and going to all of the places like the Trevi Fountain and other places, Colosseum, I think, on his own. And you even see him, Parthenon. I think he's at the Parthenon where he's shooting a selfie with his camera. And I'm like, okay, well, where's the rest of it? Because in the script, he is like, he doesn't know what to do without his family. He's going to all of these places, and pretty soon he starts speaking to himself and like narrating these places as if his kids and wife were there. And I'm like, okay, this is interesting, but it feels like Clark is having a moment. Clark is realizing like he is nothing without his family and he needs to get them back. But instead it's, we're going to concentrate on this cockamamie kidnapping. And then he's just suddenly going to be driving and be like, oh, I'm almost running into you. What a coincidence. It's like, what a wet fart of an ending too.
But at least Eric Idle pops back up.
Oh yeah. In the most unexpected way.
Yeah.
And that's the scene where the movie ends in the script. That's page 137 is Audrey, now can we go home? Music comes up and we cut to Clark and Ellen. They kiss as the music swells and we pull back to see the whole square and Rome. Fade out, major new song, just like there is in the movie itself. Major is shit. And with credits and
yeah. Instead, we get the weird plane scene.
The Griswolds are back.
Look out, talking about.
I'm not even talking about them hitting the Statue of Liberty, the serving and the taking away of the food. I'm like, what?
Yeah.
What?
That they don't get to eat.
One thing that's really neat, if you watch Eric Idle's hair in this fountain scene, it goes really dry, really quick. Just cut from him to Clark, back to him. His hair is completely dry.
Sure.
Yeah. I mean, I'm not going to cinema sins this thing, but yeah. Yeah. The taking back of the food, all that stuff was so weird too. Yeah. None of this really worked. It kind of reminded me of the Vacation remake / sequel. I mean, we'll get there, like you said, Chris, in a few years, but yeah.
Yeah.
So strange.
Well, and I mean, look, I think by the time we're done with these vacation movies, which has kind of become its own micro thing within this because we're covering all of them, I think that this one has the highest likelihood of being our least favorite, because I think even in Vegas Vacation, it's like a fun little microcosm of the 90s Vegas, which is a very weird time in Las Vegas. The please come with your family to Las Vegas and visit, which is like, now they're like, fuck that. Not only fuck that, but like, no fucking universe should you bring your family here. Like, don't do that. Yeah. I
what
mean,
happens here stays here. Yeah.
I mean, they're adding like theme parks and stuff to Universal Studios is adding like a permanent theme park fixture to Las Vegas. So it's not all for, kids or for adults and not for kids or for families. But I mean, the 90s in Vegas was a weird time when they were actively trying to get people and more importantly, families to come to Vegas. And the movie's kind of a weird microcosm of that. This is just like, they don't even lean into the 80s of Europe. They just, I don't know. It's so disappointing that they do very little with the premise here because they do so much in the continental United States. They could have just done another movie in the United States and gone the other direction. Oh, yeah. Realistically, that should have been the other movie. Like, yeah. Nope. Instead, we're going to go to Europe and do nothing with it. All right. Well, cool. I'm glad everybody got paid at least.
And you were talking about how Chevy was at the height. I mean, probably quite a few months ago, we're talking about how big 1980 was for him with Oh Heavenly Dog, Caddyshack, Seems Like Old Times. Even 81, he's making Under the Rainbow and Modern Problems. But 1985 was Fletch, European Vacation, small little role in Follow That Bird and Spies Like Us. 3 major films all starring Chevy Chase in 1 year. I mean, you were spoiled for choice when it came to Chevy Chase movies in 1985.
A duo film, a vehicle film, and an ensemble film. 3 different flavors too. Because the next time we come back to do an episode of this show, we'll be talking about Spies Like Us, which is the buddy comedy film. We've already talked about Fletch, so I mean, we've gotten the vehicle film. I think of the 3 films, though I don't remember Spies Like Us very well, Fletch is probably going to win out as the 3 of the 3 films that are released in 85. Fletch is the best of the 3 by a fucking margin, I'm assuming.
It's definitely the best.
This one's probably better than Spies Like Us, given the way you guys are reacting to Spies Like Us.
I don't know. I know there's at least one gag in Spies Like Us that I like a lot.
Seen it once, just like this movie. Saw it once in the theater. And the movie after this, Three Amigos. All 3 of these I saw in the theater, and that was it.
I don't think I saw Spies Like Us in the theater, but I definitely saw Three Amigos in the theater.
So there you go. I mean, we've got 3 flavors of Chevy Chase, and the next one that we move on to is Dan Aykroyd in Chevy Chase, which, 1970s SNL called, and they want their, leading men back. Anything else we want to talk about with European Vacation?
God, I miss Jack.
On that note, on the next episode of the Chasing Chevy podcast, we will be taking a look at 1985's Spies Like Us, which is Chevy Chase's final film released that year. 3 movies. That's a lot. Until then, where can people find you and the things that you work on, Mark Begley?
You can find my other shows, Wake Up Heavy and Cambridge Machant, over on weirdingwaymedia.com.
By you, Mike White?
Same thing, weirdingwaymedia.com for all your Mike White needs.
weirdingwaymedia.com as well for me. Wow, we're just to say it 3 times, and then Father Malone shows up? How does that work?
I think so, yeah. Maybe Ripley shows up then.
Yeah, the cute dog shows up.
Aww,
yes.
But Weirding Way Media is where you can go to find this show and all the other shows that I work on. And patreon.com/projection booth or Kulturecast, $10 or higher on either one of our Patreons gets you access to Rankin' on Bond, which if you're into James Bond movies, that's where you can go for that. If you're not, $5 is helpful as well. Thank you so much for heading over to iTunes to rate, and review the show. That would be immensely helpful if you haven't done it already, and you should. And join us next month when we're talking about 1985's Spies Like Us.
Hello, it is Ryan, and I was on a flight the other day playing one of my favorite social spin slot games on ChumbaCasino.com. I looked over at the person sitting next to me, and you know what they were doing? They were also playing Chumba Casino. Everybody's loving having fun with it. Chumba Casino is home to hundreds of casino-style games that you can play for free anytime, anywhere. So sign up now at ChumbaCasino.com to claim your free welcome bonus. That's ChumbaCasino.com and live the Chumba life.
Sponsored by Chumba Casino. No purchase necessary. VGW Group. Void where prohibited by law. 21 plus. Terms and conditions apply.
How to have fun anytime, anywhere. Step 1. Go to ChumbaCasino.com.
ChumbaCasino.com. Got it.
Step 2. Collect your welcome bonus.
Come to Papa welcome bonus.
Step 3. Play hundreds of casino-style games for free.
That's a lot of games. All for free?
Step 4. Unleash your excitement.
Woohoo!
Chumba Casino has been delivering thrills for over a decade. So claim your free welcome bonus now and live the Chumba life. Visit ChumbaCasino.com.
No purchase necessary. VGW Group. Void where prohibited by law. 21 plus. Terms and conditions apply.